Hello and welcome to an all-new, brand-new episode of This Is Metal with Joe Lawson. Now, Joe, we've taken a few weeks off, but we are back, and tonight we're talking all about the all-new Metallica album that came out about a week or two ago. It's called 72 Seasons. Have you had a chance to hear any of it yet?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I haven't heard every song, but I listened to a few of them, probably 5, 6, somewhere in there, and I liked it. You know, it's kind of a bittersweet thing for me, in my opinion, and I think it's really difficult. It must be very difficult for the guys in Metallica. You got all these old school diehard fans, you know, that grew up with the old Metallica, and it casts such a huge shadow that, you know, now they're in their older years and they've made changes. They've gone more commercialized, and you know they have a different sound. They're a different band. I mean, you can tell it's Metallica still, but you know, it's just very different. You know, and some fans embrace it and some don't. You know, I think that's a difficult, kind of a fickle thing. You know, because they gotta grow, they gotta expand, they gotta try new things, and you know, or otherwise, what's the point in putting out the same album over and over and over again? You know, so I mean, I understand what that feels like, and what they must be going through, you know, as a band and as individual musicians. You know, they want to do some different things. They want to approach some different things. And, you know, now they got a new bass player, Robert Trujillo. How do you say it?
Trujillo. And, you know, the funny thing is he's not all that new. In fact, Kirk and James are on the new episode of Guitar World. They're on the cover. And there's an interview with the two of them, and also Robert Trujillo has an interview in there, and he's talking about being the new member. He's still the newest guy in the band, that's correct, but he's been in the band now, can you believe, 20 years?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I would have never guessed he's been in the band. That's funny. But I mean, his sound is different. And I can tell by listening to this new album that, you know, the shape of what they're doing kind of has more of a groove, a slow kind of groove to what they're doing, a little bit different. And I think that's a lot of his playing. When I was listening to it, you know, I'm individually listening to things as a musician too. So I'm kind of pinpointing out his bass lines and listening to, you know, the grooves that he's laying down. He's a very groove-oriented bass player.
Oh, sure.
So I think that somewhat changed the shape of how they write music and what it comes out sounding like.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, Joe, with that, okay, you listen to the new Metallica album. Let me ask you. Now, this is very different than if you were going in the studio and making a new album with one of your bands. You have a different kind of mindset when you do that. But as a fan, do you have a certain level of expectations? Like, okay, well, as a fan, this is what I expect from Metallica. Or, you know, you listen to half the album, 5 songs. That's about half the album because they got 12 new songs on here. So, of what you've heard so far, do you have a favorite of what you've heard?
Honestly, I haven't listened to it enough.
Yeah.
To have to pick a favorite song.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I did like some of the faster intros and stuff that they had. It was like, oh wow, you know, I kind of got excited. It was like, hey, fuck, Metallica's back, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you get that feeling, you know, and I mean, like I said, they're older. They're a lot older, you know, and you can't just keep going like that. I mean, I wish life worked that way, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
And you know, I like it. I do. But you know, as an old school fan, you know, I would much rather put on Kill 'Em All or Master of Puppets or Ride the Lightning. You know, just from my personal taste. But I do like it, and I'm going to listen to it more. And
it's got to kind of grow.
I think they did a good job. You know,
it's kind of got to grow on you. Now, here's another question. You know, on the first 4 Metallica albums, which is considered kind of a classic, or really the first 3, which is up to Master of Puppets. They were known for like having really long extended songs, and then when they got to do the Black Album, they kind of just like, no, we're going to kind of it's not so important that the song has to be long. It's kind of whatever fits the song, whatever sounds. That was their approach on the Black Album. Now on this one, they kind of went back to having longer songs. I don't know if, like, the very last track on the album, which is called Imorata. It's like 11. It's over 11 minutes long. That's the longest. And I heard Lars Ulrich talk about that. That's the longest song in Metallica's history that the band has ever recorded. They actually have a song now over 11 minutes now. Now, in listening to a lot of these songs, like the ones that have been released as singles so far, they're all about 6 or 7 minutes long. And the funny thing is, when I'm listening to these songs, it like they don't seem to drag on, if you know what I mean. They seem to fit the song. And so I don't know if when they went in to record these songs, that's just how the songs came out, or if they had a goal and say, okay, we're going to go back to making long songs. But in any event, they've kind of found the approach here that works, because it is not like, even the 11-minute song that they decide to put, that's the last track. And interestingly enough, listening to it in the car, the song that's 11 minutes long doesn't seem to drag on. It's a cool sounding song, and maybe that's why it's a good song. I don't know, but that's the one thing I noticed. The songs are a little longer, but it didn't really feel like they dragged on, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I thought that they were good songs, and they carried my interest and all of that. But for the most part, if I'm honest, it takes a hell of a song to keep me engaged. Yeah. For over 6-7 minutes long. Yeah. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, even some of the classic Iron Maiden songs that are longer.
Sure.
I like them, but it's like, okay, well, what else you got?
Yeah. I'm with you. That's why I said these don't seem to drag on. I mean, it's kind of weird, because a lot of those classic, bands you mentioned, they were known for that, and that's something they kind of strive for, which I never really understood. I mean, okay, if that's your thing and that's what you're known for, maybe, but to purposely, like, let's have a 9-minute song just to have a 9-minute song, I was never a huge fan of that. I mean, if it's part of a song and it works, great. Like these ones seem to do. Now, here's another thing I was really excited about. Metallica, you mentioned Kill 'Em All. Can you believe that album turns 40 this year? So, Metallica's been going at this for, a little over 40 years now. And the thing with that is they're always like on top as far as finding new ways to market their stuff, which in today's music world, you have to be able to kind of stay on top of that. And what they did with this new album, they had what's called the global premiere, where the night before, on a Thursday, the night before the album comes out on Friday, people want to go to the movie theater. They had a global premiere of the album, and you ask, okay, well, what is that? So you go to a movie theater, you pay $10, which I think most people can afford. It's not too much, not even as much as going to see a band play live in concert. And I really enjoyed going to the theater. And what it was is very much like on the last album, where they had a video track for every single song. What this was is kind of all 12 videos, and they played in the theater. And then between the videos, you have the different band members on screen, and they're talking about the new songs and what these songs mean and how they recorded the album. And it was a really cool way, I thought, to premiere the album. And I don't know, I don't know why more bands wouldn't think of doing things like that, to kind of get people to go check out the new album.
That is a great idea. I think that's genius.
Yeah, and
I would love to do that.
Yeah, and of course, Metallica, they got the money, they got the big budget to be able to do it. So
to be able to pull that off,
So
most bands couldn't afford to do that. Yeah.
I mean, I guess
that's probably crazy expensive money to pull that off.
I mean, maybe if people see how successful this is, more record companies will think to do things like that. Even when these bands come out with, like they had the Ronnie James Dio documentary, but they only played it like 2 nights in the theater. I didn't get to see that until it was on Showtime. Of course, the night that's playing in the theater, I had something else to do. And I think even stuff like that, if they would play it in the theater, that is stuff people would go and check out. And again, as I'm watching this, I mean, the new album, I think some like 80 minutes or something like that. And yet, like, I felt like I watched a full movie. I was entertained. And what's funny is, like, they had different people direct the videos. And there was like this one guy that directed a lot of the videos, and his name was Tim something. Whenever his name would come, they go, Tim, and it was just funny seeing how people reacted to seeing music videos played with the band interviews and everything in between live in the theater. And like at the end of a movie, as the credits rolling, Metallica comes back on the screen and says, "We want to invite you to come back to the theaters. You enjoy this August. We're going to have 2 nights of our current tour filmed." Two different. So if you come both nights, you'll see a different, like a different concert, a different show in the theater. And I thought, again, these guys are onto something. I mean, I'm already anticipating. I can't wait till August. I'm gonna go see those.
Yeah, that sounds interesting for sure.
Yeah,
very cool.
And then what Metallica did the last time they released an album, they did release a video for every single song on that album, which I think was hardwired to self-destruct. And when day the album came out, I remember what they did is every hour they would roll out a new video until all the videos had been posted on the internet.
Oh, wow.
And again, that's a cool way because it gets people like, not only do you get to check out the new videos, but by the end of the day, everything has been released. And if you're like a real diehard,
what it does is it builds momentum.
Yeah.
It gives it a better chance of going viral.
Yeah.
People see 1 or 2 videos and they start talking about it. They start sharing it, shit like that, and then bam, there's another one. Bam, there's another one. Bam, there's another one. Yeah. That was pretty smart too.
And I'll tell you, Joe, that the thing with it is, like even for a Thursday night, and when a lot of people don't typically go to the movies, you would be amazed. I mean, how many people showed up just to see that Metallica event? They called it the global premiere, and theater was packed. Even in the lobby of the theater. I mean, I for a weeknight, I'd never seen it, and everybody was just really kind of participating and yelling and shouting at the screen, and you could tell everybody was really digging. And of course, some of the music videos were better than others. They had some didn't even have the band, just kind of different, like kind of graphics, but it was really entertaining. And I thought for a whole 80 minutes I was there, like my attention they had my attention, and everybody else in there. I loved hearing. It's almost like not quite a concert, but the way people were reacting to you, they were yelling and screaming and banging their head. I'd never seen anything like that in a movie theater.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, I will tell you, there are 12 new songs. Probably my favorite track so far, I've listened to this a little bit because I knew we were going to be doing this. There's a song called Screaming Suicide. It's the 3rd track on the album. And it's kind of like it's kind of fast-paced song. And what I love about there's this one lyric in the song, like I said, it's called Screaming Suicide. And then he sings, "My name is Suicide," and you're like, oh wow, that's deep. But each of it, what was interesting is they're all like fast-paced songs, pretty much. But each song really kind of stands out on its own, if you know what I mean. And that's the hard thing is picking. I could pick out like 3 or 4 that I could say maybe are my really top 3 or 4 favorite tracks. But I love all 12 tracks. There's not like one dud on the album. That's one thing I noticed too.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's hard to do.
Yeah, and I can tell. And see, I dare say, it's funny that you're saying that you could feel Robert Trujillo's presence all over this album. I think, in my opinion anyways, I feel this is the best album they made since he's joined the band. Not that I didn't like the last one, but I dare say that this is probably, to my ears anyways, the best thing they've put out since the Black Album. I say that because, like I said, there's not a dud on this album. They've made 12 music videos for every single song on, they have a video for every single song on there. And I could really, and what's funny is I was reading an article on the internet the other day, and I was laughing because the headline is like, Metallica, that the album's only been out a couple weeks, and it hasn't sold what Metallica usually sells in a week. This album only went to number 2. And I'm like, well, number 2's not that bad,
No shit.
Yeah, and then the next day I was reading that with this new album they had their first number 1 album in the UK. So again, number 2's not bad. Of course, you love to have number 1, but it's global. It's going, it's doing different things in different parts of the world. But
Sure, yeah.
Metallica is one of those bands, kind of like Kiss, Iron Maiden, and then Metallica, obviously, like you could say is really a global band. They're all around the world, not just here in the U.S.
Right. Yeah, for sure. They're one of the biggest metal bands in the world. Whether you like them or not, I mean, they've kind of done it all.
And then another track on here I really like is called "Sleepwalk My Life Away." It's just kind of got an eerie feeling. It's kind of almost relaxes you, but it's just a cool vibe. And that's the thing. Each track really does stand out. I mean, I can't say there's any two tracks on here except for the fact that they're kind of fast paced. They don't really sound alike, but it's one of those albums I feel like if you go back and you put on something like Kill 'Em All or Master of Puppets, you could say, all 12 songs here, they sound like they were made, specifically to fit on this album, and they just seem to kind of fit together.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And
I like the previous album too. I did I did buy that.
Yeah.
And it's got some good moments, but kind of the same thing with that one. It kind of left me hungry for more. You know, it just whetted the appetite a little bit. They got some cool fast riffs and some typical kind of what you would expect from Metallica, and then it just shifts into a breakdown groove kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just not the same. It's just not the same. It's not bad. It's still good. And I'm glad they're still out there. I'm glad they're still putting records out. Like I said, I'm a little more understanding of that, but I know some people are not.
Yeah, I mean, Lars Ulrich, I think too, some of his best drumming I've ever heard. In a number of years. I mean, he's always been kind of a powerhouse, but like I heard James Hetfield talk over years that he didn't think much of Lars as a drummer, like when he first met him, and obviously he's gotten better over years. But he's like, initially the only reason I really hooked up with Lars is because he had the connections. He knew this guy Brian Siegel who owned Metal Blade Records, and it was kind of my selfish desire to make it in the music business. I thought, well, okay, he's not a great drummer, but he's got the connection, so I'm gonna hook up with this guy.
Right.
But again, that kind of shows you. Look, this Metallica thing has been going for like I said, over 40 years, and I dare say the new album is just as good as the classic stuff. And Metallica's too. They take, I think it's been like 6 or 7 years since the last album, and so it's not like you get a new Metallica album every year, every two years. So when they do deliver the metal goods, as they say, it's a pretty good. It better be pretty good. You waited 6 years to give us some new music, and can you imagine if it was a piece of shit?
Right. Yeah. Right. You'd really be disappointed.
Yeah, and I think that the hardest thing these guys are going to have to deal with is like again, to my ears, I listened to all 12 tracks. Pretty decent sounding, album worth of material, and I think the hardest thing, and you probably know a little bit about this when you go out and do a live show. Okay, how much of a new album do you put in the set versus the classic stuff?
Right, sure, yeah, that's got to be kind of a tough thing to incorporate with the way they play now. Even the old classics don't sound the same. They don't deliver them the same.
And again, a band that's been doing it over 40 years, you got to always be able to step up your game, if you know what I mean. In other words, you always are constantly looking for ways to keep the fans' interest, And one of the things they've been talking about with the new album, and especially the tour, they're like, okay, if you come to see Metallica on this current tour, no two set lists are going to be the same. No two shows are going to be exactly the same. So we're playing somewhere 2 nights, and you come to see us both nights, you're not going to get the same show. The set lists are going to be different, and no. Supposedly, this is what they're saying. No two shows throughout the entire tour are going to be the same. Are you there, Joe?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about some of the things you said and the way that they kind of parallel with some other bands that have kind of done the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, it's all about staying on top of your game, because at this point, like you got people. Okay, yeah, well, Metallica's got a new album. I'll just stay home and listen to the album. You really want to make people want to come see it, like, because you do have people say, well, I see Metallica on every tour. I don't need to go see them again, But you really want to let people know, no, you might want to come to the show, because it's going to be really be something special. This is what we're going to do, and no two shows are going to be the same. And then that's the thing with the internet too. So once they start playing these live shows, and they take this on the road, and people and fans start talking about it on the internet and telling them, oh yeah, Metallica's just been great and this and that. You got to really come to the show, and we recommend this. More and more people will hopefully go. But I don't think.
Yeah, I think what they did with the way that they released this with this premiere that you're talking about and stuff is a great way to launch it, a great way to kick it off, and it's going to give them, not that they need it, because like I said, they're one of the biggest metal bands in the world. So, but I think it's going to give them a nice launch pad to work off of, for sure.
Yeah, and I just think I would hope that maybe. They will release the global premiere they had in the movie theater, like on a DVD or something. Again, I don't know if they'll do that because of the modern music industry. Because people, somebody's going to put it probably online eventually, so people can go.
I'm sure. Yeah.
See that, but I think initially it's a cool thing because again, if you're a Metallica fan and maybe you can't afford to go see the band live, I think I could pay $10 to go see the world premiere of an album. And because you say that like I went to the movies and saw the global premiere of Metallica's new album. You're like, well, wait a minute, what do you mean you've seen it? How can you see the album? And then when you explain it, and I don't even know why. Like I think it'd be a cool thing. Somebody like even filmed a concert or something or some special event, and hey, we'll have a night where you guys can go check this out in the theater. It'd be a cool thing, and who knows that may be after Metallica does this and people see the success they've had with it. Even some of the bigger bands may get the idea to follow because that's usually what happens.
Right. Yeah. One of them come by and it becomes a trendsetter, and then it takes off.
Yeah.
Several other bands try and copy the formula in their own way.
Yeah, and we mentioned I don't know if we mentioned Jason Newsted yet tonight, but amazingly, I've also read about him that he's going to be playing. He's going to be bringing back the Newsted band supposedly, and I don't know if it's how long, but at least for like the first show he's done in 10 years. So there's talk that he's making some noise about making a comeback. So I'm interested to see what happens with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, the comebacks are always strong.
Yeah, and especially in a case like that where, he was a guy that was always loved by the fans, and from what I understand, part of the reason he shut his Newsted band down, not that it wasn't successful, but he was having to put a lot of his own money into it, and so from what I understand, he was having to invest more of his money than what was actually kind of coming into the band, and so it didn't really make a lot of sense for him to do it. But again, for a guy like that, even if he's playing just one show for the first time in 10 years, fans are going to want to come see that. Okay, well, maybe I'll go see this because who knows if or when he'll play again,
For sure. Yeah, I liked the Newsted record too. I thought it was pretty cool. He had some good stuff on there, and it was promising. But yeah, it's a different world, man. It's a shame that things are
the way they
collapsing literally. And financially, bands can't afford to tour and do the things that they used to do on a scale that they used to. I mean, there's still a lot of bands that are doing it, but they've adapted and they've changed, and they're not doing as many shows, and they're not going as many places. And
I even read an interview with Roger Daltrey talking about the Who, and of course they're getting up there in age, and so this, from what I understand, they've decided to go kind of on their farewell tour, and he says we may do sporadic shows here and there, but we're not. The Who's not going to do any, which is basically him and Pete Townsend or the two surviving members of the original band, and he's like, we're getting up there in age for one thing, and he says it doesn't really make sense to even for a band like The Who to even tour in the United States. We can make just as much money playing Europe or doing shows, in England where we live.
Yeah, I mean, if you get treated differently,
yeah,
and you can take it as a band, you can take advantage of certain situations. And what I mean by that is, if you want to film a DVD, like you mentioned, a video or whatever for a song or a whole show even of your band and on your tour, things like that make a huge difference. If you have the proper setup, a really good stage, you're going to have really good sound, you've got a great light show, you've got all the boxes are checked because you're being treated better, you're being paid better, and you can afford to do those things. And not only that, it's giving fans more for their money, when you can put on a really good show, and of course that all is surrounded by what a band can afford,
Oh, sure. And Joe, also in regards to Jason Newsted, I think they, especially James and Lars, they learned a lot of what they did wrong, with Jason Newsted. A lot of the problem why he left the band, there were several reasons, but from what I understand, he wanted to, he came from Flotsam and Jetsam, where he was the main songwriter back then, and he thought he was joining Metallica and he was going to get to contribute. I think the whole time he was in the band, maybe he only got to contribute, I think, one song, and then so he went off and did these other outside projects, and the main one was this band called Echo Brain, and James Hetfield especially got really mad that, oh no, when you're in Metallica, you don't go and do outside things, and they've admitted since Jason left, that part of the reason for that attitude was we wanted him to be in Metallica, we wanted him to be successful in Metallica, but we really didn't want him being successful doing anything else.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that's how they viewed it. You know what? And that's not surprising, because a lot of bands are like that.
Yeah.
With Todd joining Queensryche, it was kind of the same thing. They wouldn't allow him to continue with Crimson Glory.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Megadeth, Dave Mustaine's the same way.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the guys that are in his current lineup doing other outside projects. I don't think he allows them to.
Yeah, but I give it to James and Lars for kind of coming clean about that stuff, and kind of at least seeing now that we could have handled things different. And I think that's why with Robert Trujillo, he's lasted for 20 years. The things they did wrong with Jason Newsted, they're like, okay, we're not gonna treat this guy the same way we treated Jason. And I've heard Jason over years talk about the fact that he goes, people whenever he'd get interviewed, people ask him, why when you were on stage, playing with Metallica, were you always wearing a Metallica t-shirt? And he's like, you know what? He goes, I was the proudest, I was so proud of being in that band. He goes, that was my band. That was my way of, advertising, hey, I'm in this band. And he's like, I was the biggest champion for that band. He goes, and then when I would go try to do an outside project, these guys would get so, they didn't want it to succeed. And they were really getting in the way of that. And he goes, maybe if I would have got a chance to contribute to, some of the writing, but they didn't want to let go of that either, And if you look at the writing credits, it's typically James and Lars, and sometimes Kurt gets to contribute. But I do think they've allowed Robert Trujillo to kind of put his stamp on it. And after being in the band finally 20 years, I do, to my ears anything, I think this is the most solid album they've made with him.
Yeah, it's good. Like I said, that's one thing that stood out to me is some juicy kind of heavy groove laden type of bass lines, and I think that's just the kind of bass player he is.
Yeah, I think and it's funny you say that, because I picked up on the grooviness of the bass all through the album, and I think Kirk got some pretty good guitar solos, but what really stood out to me was James's vocals. I mean, he's always been a great singer, but just like on here, the vocals are so intense. The lyrics are, if you listen to the lyrics to some of his songs, I mean, songs you could tell they're really thought provoking. They really thought of, it's not like he just sat down and wrote a song out like in 5 minutes. As far as the lyrics, I mean, you could tell these are songs that got great. He's trying to tell a story, and that's when I listen to music, and it's not always easy, especially when you're listening to like fast-paced metal music, to figure out like Screaming Suicide. Okay, you kind of have an idea what that's about, but again, I was really impressed with the lyrics and his vocals because they're so dynamic, and some of the words. And you know this as a singer, Joe. Some of the when you write lyrics, and especially when you're singing the song, you want to hone in on certain lyrics and certain words, and he just does that great throughout this album.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, from what I heard, I thought he did a real good job on his vocals, and
yeah,
that definitely makes it. For me, especially being a singer, that's a huge thing for me. If the vocals suck, I don't care how good the music is.
Yeah.
It just ruins it for me.
And I don't think this is just because he's he's a frontman of Metallica and he has been all these years. I do think as good as the other guys are in the band, that like if they were to ever think of trying to carry on Metallica without James Hetfield, you could get the best singer in the world, but he's like the key ingredient you need. I mean, even if you get the world's greatest metal singer, it's never gonna be James Hetfield. And I think he's the one member of the band that really is truly you just cannot replace.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to replace any member of a good band that has a good chemistry, but singers are probably the toughest one to replace for sure.
Yeah. And now, Joe, I know it's been a while since you recorded any new music, but I'd curious for going back and looking back on some of the albums you've released over years. Like when you go in and make an album, I was curious. Do you put a lot of thought into? We've released however many albums we've released, and so the fans have a certain expectation of what we should sound like, or is it more about if the music gets you and the band off?
Well, for me, it was always, what I wanted to do musically and what the guys in the band kind of wanted to do. We didn't, I don't think anybody really put that much thought into, we got to do this, or we got to do that. And to be honest, I was never successful enough to have that burden put on me that, we got this song that was really popular.
Yeah.
We got to live up to this or try and make another song like this. So I never really felt that pressure, and I always had a good day job, and I just did music because I loved doing it, so I had the freedom to do that, to do what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And
then, talking a little more about James Hetfield, too, when watching the premiere of it I saw in the movie theater, he was talking about, too, how he kind of, I don't want to say struggles with the lyrics, but he's like, he says, I got this thing, when I start writing certain songs, he goes, I go between, like, darkness and not being so dark, he goes, and I have trouble, like, finding a middle ground.
Right.
Yeah. And he seems like, when I was watching the premiere in the theater, too, he seems much more relaxed than, I think he, at one point, was talking about he hasn't had, like, alcohol, like, I think in about 10, 13 years or something like that. And so you could definitely see, even, I think, a change in the performance and even just the way he was talking during this, during these interviews in between the music videos. So it was fun to kind of see the band. And you could tell the guys, because there were certain scenes in the Global thing premiere where, like you'd see James Hetfield on the screen by himself talking, telling you what a certain song was about. Lars would talk about something. There were a couple times when the whole band was together, and that's the one thing you could kind of feel the chemistry. That there's definitely a brotherhood, especially even with Robert Trujillo still being the new guy in the band. But you could feel like they don't really have a lot of hate for each other. You feel that there's a bond.
No, that's good. That's the way it should be. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, especially not just making music, but if you're going to go touring around the world and you're going to, you've been in a band for 20 years, you better, it's a lot more fun if you like each other than if you're playing. And because there's some very successful bands that where the guys like outside of playing a concert together, they all go on their separate buses. They don't see each other unless they're going to record an album or something, and they really can't stand each other. But I guess if you make enough money, you could you could put up with that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
them days are over though. Yeah. For the most part for bands.
And I was curious, Joe, before we wrap tonight's episode up, do you want to get? We can maybe save it for a future episode, but what are your thoughts on the current status of Motley Crue? I mean, as far as all the rumors about them using backing tapes for their live show.
Well, I mean, a lot of bands do it. A lot of bands have, and they're getting up there in age, and they're just trying to keep the money machine going. Yeah. They've grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle. Sure. Their family members have as well. So that being said, they're doing what they're doing to keep the money train rolling, and I don't care what anybody else says. That's just what it is. Yeah. And I think it's disgusting how they're treating McMars. Yeah. I don't know
the whole story,
all of the details, and like I said, the business angle of all of that. But to me, McMars has got to be part of Motley Crue. It's just he's too big of a part of the band for them to all these fucking years later. Oh, we're gonna replace McMars. Wait a minute, what?
Well, the funny thing about it is that I think most people were under the impression it had a lot to do with Mick's health issues. Now, I think there's some truth to that, but but even John Corabi recently said that as far back as when they were making Generation Swine, and he played some of the guitars on that he said that like Mick Mars really hasn't played on a Motley Crue album since then, and they weren't really putting that out there, and even on the Dirt soundtrack, John 5 is on the new tracks there, but that just recently was kind of revealed, and there was Bob Daisy from Ozzy Osbourne's band saying as far back as 1984 when Motley Crue was touring, opening up for Ozzy on their Shout at the Devil tour, that they were trying to fire Mick Mars supposedly as far as back then, and it was Bob Daisy that told Nicky and Tommy, hey, Mick's you guys, if you want my recommendation, I think Mick Mars is a very key part of your band. You guys should stick with him. And then Mick has supposedly filed a lawsuit, and supposedly, like you said, has a lot to do with the money that he feels is owed him. Now, what's funny is Nicky's response. Like Carmine Appice put something out there about Mick, what Mick told him, and Nicky kind of lashed out at Carmine saying he's a washed-up drummer, but. So it's kind of Motley Crue is still out there. They're doing their thing. So I got to give it to them, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, that's my 2 cents. I think McMars is too big of a part of the band. Yeah. And if he can't continue and he can't carry on, that's different. But that doesn't appear to be the case. I think Mick wanted to continue. Yeah. I think he wanted to write and record still with the band. He just can't tour anymore.
I think a lot of what I understand has to do with like a lot of things is money, in the sense that Mick was willing to kind of retire and sit back, but unlike when Vince and Tommy left, he wasn't willing to sign away like his share of a partnership, and then he expected that when these guys go out and do live shows that he's supposed to get a certain amount of money for that. And now Nicky's saying, oh no, that he's do something, but he doesn't get part of a live show since he's not taking part in the live shows and this and that. And so that's part of what they're fighting about. And one thing's come out, supposedly, I don't know if you've heard this, Joe, but they're in the studio now with the new Motley lineup with John 5, recording a new album with Bob Rock. Now, as a Motley fan, I am excited about that. I mean, I can't wait to hear what it sounds like with John 5. I'm always up for a band putting out new music, especially since they haven't put anything else new really since the Saints of Los Angeles. I'm interested, and you think, well, Bob Rock, he produced Dr. Feelgood, so hopefully it'll sound at least a little something like that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing it as well.
Well, Joe, I know it's getting late where you are. I really enjoyed doing this tonight, and I'm going to do my best to get this up by next Monday, and I will keep you posted on that. And next Wednesday, when you and I do this again, Joe, we're going to be talking about the latest Queensryche album. It came out, I believe, last November, but we haven't done a show on Queensryche in a while, so I want to shine a light on what they're doing now. So we will save that for next time.
Sounds good, my friend. I enjoyed it.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Chaotic Riffs Magazine.